Hello everyone, a very good morning and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep. Welcome to the daily Hindu news analysis. So let's begin our discussion by first looking at the topics we are going to discuss today. I have chosen 10 important articles from the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper. We have 3 articles for a detailed analysis, largely from a mains point of view, and we have 7 more articles that are relevant for the prelims examination. So let's cover these articles one by one and we'll ensure that it will be a comprehensive discussion. Because the whole idea is to ensure that you don't have to go back and read the newspapers again. So if you guys are benefiting from this initiative, do support us by pressing the like button, share the videos with other aspirants, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. So with this, let's begin with the discussion of today's The Hindu newspaper by taking up this important column from page number 6. This column deals with the topic of net neutrality. The topic of net neutrality is in news. So it's very important to examine what is this concept of net neutrality, what implications does it have, and why is it important from a policy making perspective to focus on net neutrality. But first, let's understand the context. Why is the topic in news? The topic of net neutrality is in news because the TRAI, the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, which is the regulatory body for the telecom sector, the telecom and internet sector, has brought up a proposal to regulate your OTT platforms. The government has been pushing for greater regulation of OTT platforms, over-the-top platforms, and the TRAI has proposed an initial draft of this idea to bring regulation over OTT platforms. Now, this brings up an issue between internet service providers and the OTT platforms. Your OTT platforms are nothing but your streaming services. All the popular streaming services like Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hotstar, etc. Right? The OTT platforms and the internet service providers, the telecom operators, they both have a standing issue between them, and the telecom service providers are insisting that as part of this regulation, which is proposed for OTT platforms should be mandated to pay a higher share of their revenue for the internet service providers. The ISPs are asking OTT platforms to pay money since their streaming services are utilizing a lot of their bandwidth. So this brings up the debate of net neutrality. This is the reason why the topic of net neutrality comes into news. Because of the proposed regulation of OTT platforms through TRAI, the internet and telecom service providers are demanding OTT platforms to pay for their services. And this creates a debate between these two sectors and brings up the topic of net neutrality. Now first, let's understand as to why internet service providers are demanding money from OTT platforms. On what basis? See, with the popularity of OTT services, data consumption has gone up. That too quite significantly. Because when you stream movies, documentaries or web series on Netflix or Hotstar or any other OTT platform, right, you're streaming in very high quality, very high definition content is being streamed. So data consumption automatically goes up, consuming a lot of bandwidth. Now obviously, to enable such high-speed data connectivity, it is the telecom companies, the internet service providers, who would have invested in creating the infrastructure. So because of the increased uptake of OTT services, as more and more people are subscribing to OTT services and watching high-quality content, it is putting stress on the bandwidth of the ISPs. Data consumption has gone up. So telecom service providers are arguing that we have to invest more to create the infrastructure needed. But OTT platforms are making the money by pushing high quality content through the networks built by the ISPs. So it's on this basis that ISPs are demanding that OTT platforms should be made to pay. Now, the writer says that this is atrocious. This demand by ISPs is atrocious as it goes against the very principle of net neutrality. So let's examine this further. Let's go a little deep into the topic. See, on the face of it, the demand of ISPs might seem to be reasonable. If data consumption is increased because of OTT platforms and if telecom infrastructure is being used for that, if ISPs are investing in the back-end infrastructure, right, and if OTT platforms are making money from it, it seems only fair that the telecom company should also get a share of the revenue. But however, this is not a fair demand. On the face of it, it might appear to be fair, but it isn't fair if you examine the issue in detail. Because please understand that telecom companies are not the owners of the internet. They don't own the internet. They simply provide access to the internet. They are just the gatekeepers. So they cannot expect OTT platforms to pay for the internet services that they'll be using, because that would create an uneven playing field. And don't forget, this raises the question of competition, because there are several ISPs and telecom operators which also have OTT services, which usually they provide for free. You take Airtel for example, you take Jio for example. They've started their own OTT services, streaming services, right? So obviously they'll have a conflict of interest to undermine other OTT platforms which are their competitors, which are their rivals. They can use the differential pricing. They can use the control, the leverage they have over the network and the infrastructure to give more preference, to provide more faster data and better user experience for their own OTT platforms, and deliberately they might discriminate against the competitors. So this ends up affecting competition in the market. If competition is compromised, it will affect innovation, it will affect consumer welfare, it will affect the users at the end of the day. That is why the concept of net neutrality is so important. Telecom companies don't own the internet. They are not owners of the internet. The internet is a decentralized, free and open network, not owned by any country, not owned by one company or just by the telecom operators. The ISPs, they are simply providing you access. Users are able to access the internet via the infrastructure that ISPs are creating. And they're not doing it for free. They're already charging a fee from the users, right? For the data services that we use, we are already paying the internet service providers. That is their job. Now, through the internet, there could be various services delivered, and OTT is one of the services being delivered through the internet. So for ISPs to expect OTT platforms to pay them separately is completely against the principle of fair competition. That too when ISPs themselves own their own OTT platforms. Is that clear? Now imagine a highway with a toll plaza. Imagine this is a highway with a toll plaza. As you know, right? Highway operators, they charge a certain toll for allowing vehicles to use the modern highways with good infrastructure that has been built. Now, if you look at the toll which is charged, let's say for two-wheelers or cars or trucks or buses, obviously the toll amount is different. Correct? The toll amount for two-wheelers would be very less, or sometimes they'll be given free access. Cars will be charged at a premium. Trucks and buses will pay even more. Right? But this differentiation in pricing is because these are different class of vehicles. These are different category of vehicles. And accordingly, they have to be charged. So this is a fair principle. All the cars are charged at the same rate. All the buses are charged at the same rate. All the trucks are charged at the same rate. So that is fair pricing. When you price accordingly, depending on the class of the vehicles, that is fair pricing. That provides a fair level playing field. Now imagine a scenario where the toll operator will say that the Maruti company should pay more. Maruti company should pay more. It should pay taxes compared to other brands Because the traffic on this highway is primarily by Maruti cars. Alright, imagine a scenario where, let's say, Maruti cars are the most popular. Maruti Suzuki cars are the most popular. Out of every 10 cars, let's say 6 to 7 cars are Maruti Suzuki cars. So in this highway, majority of the cars which are using the highway are from the Maruti Suzuki brand. Now, if the toll operator says that apart from the user, that is the driver of that vehicle paying the toll, if the toll operator expects money from Maruti Suzuki, if it demands the government to tax Maruti Suzuki, right, just because there are more Maruti vehicles, how is it fair? Right? Because you can't create such a distinction within the same class. Now, on the internet, there are different services being offered. There are social media platforms, you have banking services, right? Similarly, OTT is another service. OTT is another market altogether. OTT and ISPs are not the same class. They can't be seen as the same category, right? So if let's say the government agrees to the demand of this toll operator and imposes a tax on Maruti Suzuki cars, an additional tax. Now obviously Maruti will pass on the tax to the consumer, right? So consumer's cost will increase. So apart from the consumer paying the toll while using the highway, they're already paying a premium for purchasing the Maruti car just because it is more popular. The reason why people prefer a particular brand is mainly because of the quality of the product, is mainly because of the user experience, the service that they provide. Correct? Now, if data consumption has increased because of OTT platforms, it means people are liking the product. It means they are carrying out innovation, providing high quality entertainment, educational videos, which people are liking, and they are using it as a service. OTT platforms are also charging their subscribers. That is how they generate revenue. Users are separately paying the ISPs for using the internet, for making use of their infrastructure. OTT platforms would have invested in content delivery networks to deliver high quality content at with a very short latency. Now, when two different classes or two different categories, right, in the internet sector, when they're operating, if ISPs expect OTTs to pay them just because data consumption has gone up, that would be completely unfair. Because ISPs don't own the internet, just like the toll operator does not own the highway, right? The toll operator is simply providing access, creating the infrastructure and reaping the profit out of it. But doesn't mean the toll operator can charge vehicles differently, right? Charging different class of vehicles is different. Don't get confused. But however, if you try to distinguish between, let's say, different brands of cars within the same class, you try to distinguish between the different brands, saying that one brand is more popular and that because of that brand there is more load on our highway. And if you say that that particular brand of cars, they have to pay taxes, that is completely unfair. It affects the level playing field within the car industry, right? Obviously, the taxes will get passed on to the consumer. The consumer cost will increase, right? Consumer welfare gets affected and eventually competition, innovation gets compromised. Now, in the case of the OTT platforms, this is a very serious debate because ISPs have rival OTT platforms. ISPs have started their own OTT services to compete with the traditional OTT platforms. Now, what if these ISPs who control the access to the internet, what if they start imposing differential pricing? What if they charge OTT traffic separately at a higher cost to discourage rival OTT platforms while offering their own OTT platforms as a bundled free package, right? People will be driven to largely rely on platforms like Jio Cinemas or Airtel's OTT platforms instead of, subscribing to Netflix, Hotstar or Amazon Prime. So that is a case of unfair playing field or a uneven playing field. That is what affects competition, right? So ISPs can't treat OTTs as a separate entity. Just like every other online service being offered, OTT is another service being offered. If data consumption has gone up through OTT platforms, it's because people are liking their service, right? So they are investing in research and innovation, providing better product with better user experience, with better content. So people will prefer to watch that. And for whatever data is being consumed, the users are paying for it. The users are already paying a monthly fee for the ISPs, for the data plan that they have procured. So it would be completely unfair to expect OTTs to pay the ISPs separately. That too at a point where ISPs themselves have rival OTTs. So they could misuse this for differential pricing, where they will push their own OTTs at free of cost, whereas imposing a higher cost maybe on the OTT platforms. Differential pricing could hurt competition, right? Or they might try to block or restrict data speed and access to the rivals. So this destroys competition, correct? And eventually affects consumer welfare. So that is the reason why the topic of net neutrality comes up. Net neutrality is a principle that was popularized by Columbia Law School professor Tim Wu back in 2003. He coined the term net neutrality. According to Tim Wu, who laid out this concept for the first time, he said that the concept of net neutrality should provide for an even playing field, a level playing field on the internet for all different service providers. ISPs, who are simply the gatekeepers, they should not be allowed to determine access to internet. They should not be allowed to impose differential pricing. They should not be allowed to block or restrict access to certain services while favoring other services. This is where competition gets affected. Is that clear? ISP should not have the power to block or restrict access to any kind of platform or service on the internet. They should not be allowed to impose differential pricing. This is the whole concept of net neutrality, ensuring that all data is treated equally without any discrimination. That is what protects the open and free nature of the internet. Is that clear? This has a wider political, social, and economic implication. From your right to free speech and expression, to your right to having quality services, right? Everything would get compromised if net neutrality is not followed by the internet service providers. So that is why net neutrality is such an important concept when it comes to telecom and internet connectivity. Is that clear? It's a principle that internet providers will treat all the web traffic, irrespective of which website, which platform is it, or which service is it. They should treat all web traffic equally. The same data speed, the same quality has to be offered, the same pricing has to be offered without any discrimination. And also they should not misuse their powers as gatekeepers to block or restrict access to rivals and competitors and promote their own products and services, right? So this is the very essence of the concept of net neutrality. In fact, in India, we have a precedent. Back in 2016, Facebook, which today is Meta, had proposed something called the free basics. Facebook was trying to tie up with few internet service providers, and in the name of providing increased access to internet and social media, they were trying to bundle Facebook with preferential treatment being given to Facebook services on internet platforms. This proposal was struck down by the TRAI, the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, did not allow free basics to be implemented, which was a Facebook initiative to increase access to social media, to increase access to the internet. Because if few social media companies which already have a dominating monopoly, if they tie up with some ISPs or with some mobile manufacturers, and if they pre-package their apps and provide preferential access only to their apps, right? This creates a discrimination. It creates an uneven playing field. Smaller companies will never be able to compete with the domination that Facebook would have established. So this initiative, the Free Basics initiative of Facebook, in association with mobile manufacturers and ISPs, was seen as against the principle of net neutrality. So India's TRAI, the regulatory agency, prohibited such discriminatory tariffs, and it did not allow the Free Basics initiative to be rolled out in India. So there is an established precedent in India. Around the world, net neutrality is a very important concept. Even in European Union and in all the major markets, net neutrality has been implemented. The idea that internet should be free and open, there should not be any kind of discrimination over the traffic that is passing through the internet. ISPs are simply gatekeepers, they don't own the internet, right? So they can't restrict access or block access or charge different prices, differential tariffs for the users or the service providers. This is the whole concept of net neutrality. So the writers of the column, they are urging TRAI to take the right stand in line with the principle of net neutrality. Expecting OTTs to pay ISPs just because data consumption has gone up is not a valid argument, according to the writers. Is that clear? OTTs should not be expected to pay the ISPs. Then that will hurt competition, it will hurt consumer welfare, the cost paid by the consumer will increase, and it will only benefit those OTTs owned by ISPs themselves. That is a clear case of conflict of interest. Understood? So that is the important argument this column brings out, and it's an important article as far as Indian economy is concerned. Now let's look at another article. On the same page, we have a column written by a strategic expert that talks about the importance of finding political solutions in order to resolve conflicts. The writer is highlighting the role of political dialogue, engaging with all the stakeholders in case of a war or conflict to find a political solution to resolve the conflict. Because generally, countries rely on military strategies. They rely on their operational superiority in military terms to subdue their enemy. And just by subduing the enemy, they assume that they have won the conflict. When such a strategic conflict exists, maybe between two states or between a state and non-state actor, some of the powerful countries, they believe that just by relying on their military strength, their operational superiority, they can subdue the enemy, right, who might be in a weaker position. They can subdue the enemy just with a military approach. And as a result, they believe that they have won the conflict. But in reality, they are simply managing the conflict. They are not resolving the conflict entirely. And this was clearly seen in the recent incident that happened on 7th of October involving Israel and Hamas. Now let me explain what the writer is trying to convey. See, Hamas, which is the terrorist organization based out of Gaza Strip, pulled off this major terror strike on the 7th of October, which pushed Israel to go to war against Hamas. As you know, Israel has been accused of using disproportionate force, even targeting civilians, and there have been large-scale casualties on both the sides. In the terrorist attack, Hamas killed more than 1,400 innocent Israeli Jews. In the counter-retaliation that Israel has carried out over the last 3 weeks, more than 10,000 Palestinians in the Gaza Strip have been killed, along with several hundred terrorists of Hamas. So this conflict, which has escalated, right, it will leave behind a long-lasting damage. It will further derail any possible solution for the Israel-Palestine conflict. It will derail any hope of achieving the two-state solution, which is the only viable solution for the Israel-Palestine conflict. Now, if you look at Israel's strategy of dealing with groups like Hamas, Israel has often relied on its military superiority, its intelligence capabilities, to target the terror groups, keep them under check through military strikes and covert operations. Now, there is a history behind this. If you look at the repeated airstrikes that Israel has carried out in the past as well, for every terror attack carried out by Hamas or Palestinian terror groups, Israel would retaliate with disproportionate force, carrying out these large-scale airstrikes, subduing the terrorist infrastructure, or even hunting down terrorists and assassinating them through covert operations through its intelligence agencies. So no doubt Israel has built up a formidable military and intelligence capability, and this has led Israel to believe in a false assumption that just by maintaining operational military superiority, we can subdue the enemy and we can win the conflict. But this theory, this strategy of Israel was proven wrong on the 7th of October when Hamas managed to carry out this devastating, brutal terror attack. That is what has reignited the conflict, imposing a huge cost on civilians on both the sides, which could leave behind a long-lasting impact on the whole region. Correct? Now, if Israel had recognized Palestine as a political problem, if it had approached this through a political dialogue, there were other stakeholders with whom Israel could have held negotiations. For example, the Palestinian Authority, which has some administrative control over West Bank. Israel has often sidelined the Palestinian Authority. It has undermined the civilian authority and instead just used military superiority to target terror groups, thereby adding more fuel to the fire. In a way, terror groups like Hamas, they get easy recruitment, they get easy funds, as Israel keeps using its military superiority to target Palestinians, and whenever large-scale force is used, the victims of the conflict will become an attractive recruitment base for terrorist groups like Hamas. So even though Hamas is on a weaker footing, definitely compared to Israel, Hamas is a weaker entity in this conflict, right? But it definitely has the resolve to keep fighting and executing these brutal terror attacks against Israel, because Israel has never bothered to find a political solution for the Palestinian conflict. If Israel had to wipe out Hamas, if Israel had to really sideline Hamas, all it had to do was engage with the Palestinian people, the civilians, the Palestinian civilian leadership and the Palestinian Authority, and try and find a political solution to implement the two-state solution. Instead of that, Israel has been short-sighted, according to the writer. It has excessively focused on its military and operational superiority, assuming that military strength is enough to deal with the issue. Right? The issue might be curbed. There might be interim periods of peace. Right? Whenever Israel carries out major strikes, there will be peace for few years. But again, groups like Hamas will keep coming back. Right? If not Hamas, tomorrow there will be another terror group, another Palestinian terror group carrying out these attacks, and it will become a perpetual conflict. The price will be paid by civilians and the whole region. So along with maintaining your military and operational superiority, it is important to focus on the political roots of the issue. In case of any conflict, not just Israel-Palestine, in case of any war, any conflict, any border dispute, apart from building up your military strength and your operational capability, you need to address the political root causes. Now, this applies for India and Pakistan as well. That is the argument the writer is making. The writer is saying that India should not make the same mistakes as made by Israel. Right? Israel's over-dependency on military and operational superiority is what has led to the crisis, because there has never been a genuine attempt to find a political solution to the Palestinian conflict. That is what emboldens and empowers terror groups like Hamas to continue their operations. Right? If not today, they will regroup again, they'll strike again. And the whole cycle of violence will keep repeating. Now, in the India-Pakistan context as well, this is a relevant argument, because even India has relied heavily on its military and covert options to target Pakistan's destabilization of Kashmir and its constant sponsorship of terrorism against India. See, the writer is not saying that you should not build up your military operational capabilities. You should. To defend yourself, you need to have formidable military and intelligence capabilities. But that cannot be the only approach. Right? If you're managing a strategic threat only purely through military means, then the adversary will find a way someday or the other to strike, to carry out such major strikes which could lead to further conflicts and cycle of violence. If you are intending to resolve the conflict, political approach has to be pursued, meaning talks, negotiations have to happen with all the stakeholders. Now, India often has used covert options and military options against Pakistan, right? Be it the surgical strikes after the Uri attacks, the Balkot airstrikes after Pulwama attacks, and the various wars we have fought, right? There is a history of India using military and covert options to subdue Pakistan. This strategy will only help us to manage the situation. But managing is not enough. You need to find a solution, right? If you have to resolve the conflict, if you have to achieve conflict resolution, then addressing the political root cause through talks is the only way forward. If you look at successful examples of conflict resolution around the world, right? Conflicts have never been resolved with wars and conflicts or just with military strategies. It's a very rare occurrence. If you look at any successful, peaceful model of conflict resolution, it has always occurred through a political approach. So that is why the writer is encouraging India to engage with Pakistan as well. Because over the last few years, our ties have been downgraded because of Pakistan's persistent sponsorship of terrorism against India. So India's approach is that talks and terrorism cannot go hand in hand. This has been the consistent stand India has taken. But if you're not talking to Pakistan, if you're not engaging with them, if you're not creating leverage over the Pakistani army, which calls the shots over Kashmir issue and sponsorship of terrorism, then you'll never find a permanent solution. Right now, there might be relative peace between India and Pakistan. Tomorrow, if there is a major attack, right, if the terrorists regroup and if they carry out a major strike on India, it might push India towards another military approach, which might even lead to a bigger war or a conflict. Now imagine this would be between two nuclear armed rivals. It's not like Israel-Hamas, where there's a clear mismatch in power equation. India-Pakistan would be a much more serious conflict, considering that both have nuclear weapons in their arsenal. That's why the writer is insisting that apart from maintaining your military operational superiority, you need to focus on addressing the political root causes, which would include reopening dialogue on Kashmir, right? Especially after the special status of J&K under Article 370 was revoked in 2019. There has been very limited political engagement from the government of India with the people of J&K. Right? The Union Territory of J&K, which has been set up after reorganizing the state. It is supposed to have a legislative assembly, but the elections to the legislative assembly have never been held. Right? The government has even promised that statehood might be restored in the future, but there has been no progress on that front. There is very limited contact between the government and the people of J&K, and especially with Pakistan as well. It's important to engage all the stakeholders if you wish to find a permanent, peaceful solution to resolve such conflicts. So that is the core point the writer is making. He's highlighting the importance of political solutions, along with maintaining your military intelligence and operational superiority over the enemy. If you blindly focus just on your military operational superiority, it will only give you short-term benefits. You are only managing the conflict, you are not resolving the conflict. To resolve the conflict, you have to address the political root causes. So that is the crux of the column written by Arzan Tarapur. Now moving on page number 9, in the text and context section, we have an article that refers to a major data breach that has reportedly occurred recently. And this involves Indian citizens. According to an American cybersecurity firm, personal data, personally identifiable information, or PII, of millions of Indian citizens is apparently being sold on the dark web, on the dark net. This includes Aadhaar numbers, passport details, and even voter ID details. It's being sold by a threat actor who goes by the pseudonym PWN0001. This cyber actor, who's a threat actor, could be an individual cyber criminal or a well-organized cyber criminal outfit. They are claiming that they have gained access to millions of data points, which provides personally identifiable information regarding the Aadhaar details and passport details of Indian citizens. Now, this is being sold for a price on the dark web, the dark net. The dark net is the hidden part of the internet, which is not easily accessible. Right? It's a highly encrypted part of the internet, which is often used by cyber criminals and other illegal entities to carry out such illegal activities by avoiding any detection from the law enforcement agencies. The dark net provides for complete anonymity and complete security for the user. Right? You can mask your location, your identity, your IP address. You can remain completely anonymous on the dark web. On the dark web, a lot of illicit activities take place, from selling of drugs, weapons, to selling child pornography, to selling data which has been stolen. Cyber criminals, when they hack into systems through different malwares, right, they steal a lot of sensitive data. They might steal credit card information, banking, net banking information, username and passwords, or such personally identifiable information, which is your personal data. Such personal data fetches a very big price on the dark net, because this could be further deployed for various targeted operations against the victims. Is that clear? Now, personal data or personally identifiable information is any data through which the living individual behind the data can be identified. If the living individual behind that data can be identified, then such data is recognized as personal data or personally identifiable information. So this includes your name, your date of birth, right, your biometrics, such basic details that you might have shared online, or a data intermediary would have collected that data and uploaded online. If that is leaked, if it falls into the wrong hands, and by using such personally identifiable information, if they can figure out as to who is the living person, the living individual behind this data, basically if they can ID that person, right, then that becomes your personal data. So, personal data, if it is in the wrong hands, is a very, very big risk for your data privacy and your data security. Your data privacy, data security gets undermined if your personal data falls into the wrong hands. So for users, data protection is extremely important to protect their identity. If this data protection is compromised, your identity can be misused by criminals. Right? They might forge your documents to create fake passports, which might be used by criminals or terrorists. They might use the information for a phishing attack, for a well-planned phishing attack, where you're deceived to believe that the communication you're receiving is a genuine communication. By knowing your personal details, they might send you an email, they might call you, right? They might give the personal details to show that they are authentic, genuine callers or email senders, leading the user to believe that it's a genuine communication, where they are asked to reveal more personal information, reveal more personal data, which could allow the criminals, the attackers, to steal your money, to compromise your financial stability by stealing the money in your bank account, right? And it can be deployed for a variety of other purposes. So that is the big risk associated with such data leakage. Now, the government of India has consistently denied that such data breaches have occurred. Even in the past, such allegations have come up that Aadhaar data and even voter ID data, ration card data has been apparently stolen and leaked. But the government of India has consistently denied most of these claims. Usually, the threat actors, essentially the cyber criminals, the hackers, They get hold of such data by primarily targeting government websites and data banks maintained by government entities. It could be the UIDAI, Unique Identification Authority of India, which is responsible for the Aadhaar system. It maintains a central data repository where all the personal information, including your biometric details, are stored, right? Or it could be various government schemes and initiatives, right? It could be the PM Kisan Yojana, for example, Indian Council of Medical Research. So all these websites and their servers, they hold lot of data, personal data on Indian citizens. So usually the threat actors, they target such data centers, servers and websites to steal sensitive personal information. There have been many such instances in the past, as I told you, but the government of India denies most of the data breaches by saying that data security is ensured by taking all the measures that are needed. In India, we have an organization called CERT-In, Computer Emergency Response Team India, which is the nodal agency under the IT Act to deal with any kind of cyber attack. CERT-In has the primary responsibility to defend the Indian cyberspace and also to protect the integrity of the Indian cyberspace by dealing with such malwares and threat actors. So the CERT-In also maintains that data breach on this scale has not occurred. But however, these reports which come in the media, which are brought out by various cybersecurity firms and think tanks around the world, they do raise a lot of concern for Indians, because if your personal data is being sold on the darknet, if criminals are getting hold of it, right, that poses a great risk where your identity, as I told you, can be misused or your financial integrity could be compromised. Now, to ensure data protection, recently India has enacted the Digital Personal Data Protection Act. Recently, the Indian Parliament has passed the Digital Personal Data Protection Act that specifically deals with these issues. So data intermediaries have that responsibility to protect your data, the data fiduciaries. This could be private companies or even government institutions. So those who are in between, who are collecting user data, handling it, storing and processing user data, those institutions, private companies and government institutions, they're called data fiduciaries or data intermediaries. They have the primary obligation to ensure your data privacy. The data fiduciary has the primary responsibility here. They are the ones collecting user data, storing it, processing it, transferring it, handling it. So the law places the responsibility on the fiduciary. It could be private company or a government institution. But the problem with the law is that the government has given itself a lot of exemptions. Number of government entities in the name of national security have been exempted from these obligations. Those data fiduciaries, they don't have the obligation to uphold your data privacy or data security. This has been done in the name of national security. That is why the Digital Data Protection Act has faced a lot of criticism as well. So this particular issue which has been reported raises the concerns associated with cybersecurity, data security and data protection, and how such data breaches on a large scale can threaten the privacy and integrity and fundamental rights of Indian citizens. All right. So on this note, I complete my detailed discussion of all the big columns in today's newspaper. Now we proceed towards the prelim section. We take a look at the smaller articles, starting with this article on page number 5. This article refers to red sanders, or also called red sandalwood. This is a very important topic under environment and ecology, because the red sandalwood, right, it's a very expensive commodity and it's found in a very small region. This topic has always been important for UPSC exams, right? Of course, of late, you might have heard of red sandalwood, red sanders. The movies like Pushpa have, popularized red sanders, the issue associated with it. But even before that, even before the movie came in, red sanders and the smuggling of red sanders has always been a persistent problem facing India. So this variety of tree, it's very unique. It is found only in the Eastern Ghats. It is endemic to the southern part of Eastern Ghats. In the Eastern Ghat ranges, especially in and around Tirupati, the holy sacred temple town of Tirupati, in and around that you have the Sheshachalam reserve, right? So that is where you find the red sanders from Chittoor towards Tirupati region of Andhra Pradesh. This is the only place where you find red sandalwood in the southern part of Eastern Ghats. Now please don't confuse this with sandalwood that is available only in Karnataka. That is a completely different tree altogether. The sandalwood of Karnataka is different, which is known for its fragrance and aromatic oils. Right? Sandalwood is used for making idols and as well as cosmetics and even for medical purposes as well. So sandalwood is entirely different, which is endemic to Karnataka. Red sander or red sandalwood, which is endemic to southern Andhra Pradesh, southern Eastern Ghats, it's known for its bright red hue, the bright red color, along with its medicinal properties. So this particular wood has a huge international market and it is trafficked in the black market. It is smuggled and trafficked in the black market. Especially across Asia and even in Western countries, there are a lot of applications for the red sanders. They are used to make incense sticks for the unique aroma that they give. They're also used for medicinal and cosmetic purposes. But the primary application is to make furniture and even for musical instruments. It's a very preferred wood material for making musical instruments. So there exists a huge black market in Southeast Asian countries, including Vietnam, Cambodia, then China, even in East Asian countries, including Japan. And of late, there is a big market in the West as well for products that are made using red sanders or red sandalwood. 1 ton of red sanders can fetch anywhere between 50 lakh rupees to 1 crore rupees. That's the minimum I'm quoting. It could go even above this depending on the quality of the wood. So there is a big incentive for smugglers and traffickers to target red sanders. Is that clear? So the IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature, has categorized red sanders as endangered on the red list. For a brief period, it had removed red sanders from the red list. It had been classified as near threatened or least concern. But last year, it was brought back on the endangered list in 2022. So this is something you should be aware of. It's a threatened species of tree found only in southern Eastern Ghats. Next, on page number 10, we have an update on India-Bhutan relations, which we were discussing yesterday. I told you yesterday that Bhutan's king is on an important visit to India. He has met with Prime Minister Narendra Modi and discussed some important initiatives between India and Bhutan. So I'll be marking out those key points, which are very important facts for your prelims. Yesterday we spoke about the railway line, the first ever railway link between India and Bhutan, which is being pursued from Assam to Bhutan. Right? So this project has been finalized and both sides have agreed to commence the final survey for this 57-58 kilometer railway link that will connect Kokrajhar in Assam with Gelufu in Bhutan. Bhutan is planning to turn Gelufu into a major technology hub and an industrial hub. It's planning to build an airport over here. It is also coming up with a special economic zone. It's coming up with a SEZ, the Sarpang Special Economic Zone, has been proposed to attract high technology industries and to drive investments and growth in Bhutan's economy. Because Bhutan's economy is facing a crisis. It has always been heavily dependent on India In fact, the dependency has been so much that we always provide budgetary support. Through our annual budget, we provide dedicated allocation to finance Bhutan's budget and its 5-year plan. That's why Bhutan's king has thanked India for financing the 12th 5-year plan. And India has promised to continue the support for the 13th 5-year plan as well. This budgetary assistance from India to Bhutan has existed since 1950, since the days of Prime Minister Nehru. So India has consistently given such kind of financial support. But today, because of the pandemic and because of Bhutan's unique economic model, it is facing a major crisis. Its debt burden has increased, primarily borrowed from India. But India would never misuse the debt burden, right? But still, the crisis facing Bhutan is quite serious right now. So India wants to help out Bhutan, and that is the reason why we are involved in such important connectivity projects. So we are helping Bhutan with the railway link. India is going to build this key project. India will be funding it. And Bhutan is relying on this connectivity with Assam to drive growth at Gelufu Airport and the Sarpang Special Economic Zone that it is planning. Right? So this will not compromise Bhutan's values related to its happiness index. Without compromising on its unique culture, spirituality, environment conservation, in spirit with Gross National Happiness Index, Bhutan will focus on sustainable development with minimal impact and damage on the environment. Along with these projects, there are many other initiatives which have been announced. Please make a note of this. India and Bhutan have agreed to allow the movement of people to Bangladesh as well, via West Bengal. Apart from this railway link, they have agreed on allowing Bhutanese trade to be taken via West Bengal into Bangladesh. So traders from Bhutan can move into India. We have a partially open border, by the way, right? It's not a full hard border that we have. There are no hard border controls. At the same time, it's not a fully open border. It's a partially open border between India and Bhutan. So Bhutanese traders can come to India through West Bengal, through Haldibari. And from here, they'll be allowed to pass into Chilahati region of Bangladesh for the purposes of trade. It will improve Bhutan-Bangladesh trade relations. So we are planning another railway line. A second railway project has been proposed between West Bengal and Bhutan. Please note down this point. It's very important. It will connect important locations in West Bengal and Bhutan, a 18-kilometer railway line between Samtse in Bhutan and Banarhat in West Bengal. This is the second railway project which has been proposed. Alright, apart from this, India-Bhutan are looking to improve their border infrastructure to enable the quick movement of people and goods. Border infrastructure, the border crossing points are being improved upon. For example, India-Bhutan are designating the Daranga-Samdrup Jonkar border crossing from Assam to Bhutan's less developed southeastern district. This checkpoint is being upgraded to an immigration checkpost where even third country citizens can pass through. This border crossing point was available only for Indian citizens and Bhutanese citizens. So going forward, this checkpoint at Assam-Bhutan border will allow third-party nationals as well, meaning foreign tourists will be allowed. It will be a big boost for tourism into Bhutan. So from the Indian side, foreign tourists can enter Bhutan through this border checkpoint. And another important trade point is being upgraded into an integrated checkpost. The current custom station that we have, the land custom station at Dadgiri in Assam, it's being modernized into a ICP, into an integrated checkpost to improve trade with Bhutan. An integrated checkpost will bring all the border facilities together under one single terminal. From customs to security check, taxes, revenue officials, intelligence officials, everyone will function under a single terminal with advanced facilities and infrastructure so they can quickly process the movement of people and goods, thus improving trade and connectivity. So these are some important projects which have been announced. The upgradation of the Dadgiri custom station to ICP, the decision to allow third country nationals through the immigration checkpoint that will boost Bhutan's tourism, and the railway projects which we discussed, along with India's budgetary assistance, continued budgetary assistance to Bhutan. So please make a note of all these important points as it highlights the trajectory of India-Bhutan relations. However, regarding the boundary talks between China-Bhutan, there has been no update. Of course, India-Bhutan would have discussed the issue, but since it's a sensitive classified issue, we don't have any information in the public domain. Both sides haven't shared any information regarding what they have discussed over the China-Bhutan boundary dispute. Next, on the same page, we have an article related to another Himalayan neighbor of India, that is India-Nepal. It refers to the border issues, the border security issues between India and Nepal. See, the India-Nepal border is a very sensitive border because India and Nepal have a fully open border. Under the 1950 Treaty of Peace and Friendship, which is the foundation of India-Nepal relations, both countries have set up a fully open border that allows for free movement of people and goods. It promotes the civilizational ties between India and Nepal, the historical cultural links we have, and it promotes close people-to-people relations and economic relations as well. So as a result of the open border, there are no hard border controls here. Right? The border guarding forces have restrictions on them. From India, the border guarding force here is the SSB, the Sashastra Seema Bal. From Nepal, the border guarding force is the Armed Police Force of Nepal. These border guarding forces have restrictions on them. They can't carry heavy weapons, they can't open fire, they can't fence the border, because we want the border to remain open. That is the very foundation of India-Nepal relations. But however, because of the open nature of the border and the complex terrain of the border, there are many security challenges that we face over here. Now, if you look at the topography of this border, you have hilly mountainous areas. For example, towards Uttarakhand and Sikkim, you have the Himalayan mountain ranges. Towards UP and Bihar, you have the Terai belt, the plains of Nepal that extend into UP and Bihar, which is filled with rivers, wetlands and forests. Right? The Gangetic system that flows down from Himalayas through Nepal into India creates a multiple riverine network with wetlands and dense forest ecosystems. So when you have such a complex geography, right, the border becomes highly porous. So it's very difficult to secure a highly porous border like this. Because of the complex terrain, there are natural gaps in the border. The hilly mountainous terrain, the forests, rivers, wetlands, they create natural gaps, right, which can't be easily patrolled. Patrolling becomes a challenge. Securing these gaps becomes a challenge. That's why the India-Nepal border is considered as a highly porous border. So as a result, there are many security challenges present here. Organized crime is very rampant, from drug trafficking to arms trafficking to even human trafficking. All these criminal activities flourish along the India-Nepal border. And wherever criminal activities flourish, in the same regions, money laundering and terror financing will also flourish. So this has been a concern for India, especially back in 1990s and in the early 2000s. Pakistan had misused this boundary. It was using Nepal as a base for its terror operations against India. Pakistan's intelligence agency, the ISI, was working with criminal cartels and terrorist organizations to infiltrate terrorists into India. Terror groups like Lashkar-e-Toiba, Indian Mujahideen, which have been nurtured, supported by Pakistan, have often used the Nepali route for transit into Pakistan. Right? So this remains a concern. So that is why, to discuss the border security issues, the two security forces are holding a meeting. SSB and the Armed Police Force of India and Nepal are discussing various measures to curb the trans-border crimes. In fact, Pakistan has even used this route to push fake Indian currency notes into India. The ISI is carrying out economic destabilization of India by printing fake currency notes. These FICNs, fake Indian currency notes, are also pushed through the Nepali route into India. Alright, so these are the border security challenges we face here. The next article on page number 12 refers to the Indo-Pacific Maritime Domain Awareness Initiative. This is an important initiative launched by the Quad countries last year. In 2022, when the Tokyo summit of the Quad countries took place, the 4 Quad members, India, Australia, Japan, and United States, they launched the Indo-Pacific Maritime Domain Awareness Initiative to generate maritime awareness. Because for Quad countries, maintaining free and open nature of Indo-Pacific is a priority. So they are looking to tackle all the major security threats across the Indo-Pacific. So in the Indo-Pacific, they have divided the region into 3 sub-regions. The Pacific Islands near Australia in the South Pacific, Southeast Asia, and the Indian Ocean region. These are the 3 major sub-regions in the Indo-Pacific. So Quad countries are focusing on improving security in these sub-regions, right? So this initiative, the Maritime Domain Awareness Initiative, focuses on generating real-time intelligence. It focuses on generating real-time intelligence through effective monitoring of the waters, the sea lanes of communication. There are critical sea lanes of communication here in the Indo-Pacific, which is vital for global shipping. There are multiple choke points in the Indo-Pacific, like Malacca Strait, Hormuz Strait, and others. So these are vital lanes for global shipping, and there is a threat from piracy, dark shipping, and terrorism. There are many illegal ships that pass around, posing a security threat which might be involved in smuggling drugs or weapons, right? Terror groups and pirate groups might be navigating through the Indo-Pacific region. So to deal with these threats, it's important to generate a real-time picture of the maritime traffic, to monitor the maritime movement, monitor the movement of all vessels in real time, right? It's a very important goal for these countries. That is what maritime domain awareness deals with. In this regard, India has an important initiative called the IFC-IOR, Information Fusion Center for Indian Ocean Region. See, after the Mumbai attacks, the 26/11 Mumbai attacks, India has created a network of coastal radar stations to improve maritime domain awareness and improve maritime coastal security. India has installed these radars all along the coastline of India from Gujarat to West Bengal. We have installed these coastal radars in the island territories as well, in Lakshadweep and Andaman Nicobar. We have extended the project from India to friendly countries as well, such as Mauritius, Seychelles, and even to Maldives. So this radar chain that we have created in the Indian Ocean region is generating real-time intelligence for India, for the Indian Navy, right? Regarding all the maritime movement that's happening across the Indian Ocean. So this radar data is integrated into a headquarters, into a national headquarters, which is IFC-IOR. It is located on the outskirts of Delhi in Gurgaon, and it is operated by the Indian Navy. So Indian Navy gets a complete real-time picture of the shipping traffic all across Indian Ocean because of these coastal radars, where the data is integrated into IFC-IOR, Information Fusion Center for the Indian Ocean region. This intelligence center has become so important that many friendly navies are also interested. So they have deployed their liaison officers. So countries like US, France, even Russia, UK, Japan, Australia, South Korea, all these countries which are interested in the Indo-Pacific, which want to monitor the shipping traffic in the Indian Ocean region especially, they have deployed their naval officers as liaison officers at IFC-IOR to coordinate with Indian Navy and to share intelligence between each other. Is that clear? So Indo-Pacific Maritime Domain Awareness Initiative of the Quad grouping is a very, very important topic. So these two important institutions have been referred to by the Naval Admiral R. Hari Kumar as part of the Goa Maritime Conclave, which took place recently. Goa Maritime Conclave is a maritime dialogue hosted by Indian Navy, where multiple Indian Ocean countries are invited to engage in a dialogue over maritime security issues in the Indian Ocean. Is that clear? The Indian Navy organizes this conclave, the fourth edition of the conclave was held, where major Indian Ocean countries like Comoros, Singapore, Maldives, Malaysia, Thailand, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and others, they were all invited to participate to focus on maritime security in the Indian Ocean region. So these are some basic important points you need to note down. The next article is related to the appointment of Chief Information Commissioner. This article on page 12, it refers to the appointment of a new Chief Information Commissioner. The President of India, Draupadi Murmu, has appointed a new Chief Information Commissioner. Alright, now let us take a brief look at the appointment process. How are Chief Information Commissioners appointed? See, the Chief Information Commissioner heads the Central Information Commission under the terms of the RTI Act. The Central Information Commission is headed by the Chief Information Commissioner and they are assisted by Information Commissioners who are also appointed to the Central Information Commission. As you know, the RTI Act, Right to Information Act, was a revolutionary piece of legislation which gave unprecedented access to government information for the common public. So this helps in keeping a check on corruption, in holding the government accountable, bringing transparency in governance. So it was one of the landmark initiatives of the former Manmohan Singh government. Right? So under the RTI Act, the appointment process of Chief Information Commissioner and the Information Commissioners is outlined. They are appointed by the President of India based on the recommendations of a selection committee. This selection committee is headed by the Prime Minister along with the leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha. If there is no leader of opposition, then the leader of the single largest party. And a third member is also present, a union minister who is nominated by the PM. These are the three members of the selection committee. The Prime Minister himself, the leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha, and a union minister nominated by the PM. They constitute the selection committee. They will recommend the names of the Chief Information Commissioner and the Information Commissioners who are in turn appointed by the President of India. However, with regard to the recent appointment, Hiralal Samaria, who was an Information Commissioner, has been elevated to the Chief Information Commissioner and President has appointed him. But a controversy has broken out because apparently the leader of the single largest party in Lok Sabha, Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, the Congress leader, he has raised a very serious allegation that he was excluded from this decision making of the selection committee. Opposition leadership has been given representation here to ensure that there is accountability in the selection process, to ensure that a balanced decision is taken regarding such key appointments. But according to the recent allegation raised by Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, he has written to the President of India saying that he was not consulted, he was not invited. Even though he said he is not available for a particular meeting, apparently the Prime Minister and the Union Minister have gone ahead and referred the name to the President, and President has already appointed the Chief Information Commissioner. So this in a way subdues the legal process that has been laid out for appointment. Alright, so this is an allegation that has been raised by the leader of opposition. Next, on the same page, we have an article referring to Bharat Atta. See, as you know, wheat flour is a staple in India, right? It's a lifeline in Indian diet. But wheat flour prices have been fluctuating. It has become quite expensive as well, which hurts the common man. So to moderate the prices of wheat flour and to ensure easy availability of wheat flour, the government has launched an initiative called Bharat Atta. Is that clear? The government of India has directed three important entities. The NAFED, please make a note, the NAFED, National Agricultural Cooperative Marketing Federation of India, along with Kendriya Bandar, and the National Cooperative Consumers Federation of India Limited, NCCF. These three entities were directed by the government to lift the excess wheat, the surplus wheat available with Food Corporation of India, turn this into wheat flour and sell this as a brand called Bharat Atta. This will be sold through retail outlets and mobile vans that will be operated by these entities led by NAFED. Kendriya Bandar, NAFED and NCCF, they will open retail outlets. They will also deploy mobile vans which will sell this government branded wheat flour at a cheaper price than the market price. The market average price is around 35 rupees per kilogram of wheat flour, per kilogram of atta. The Bharat Atta will be sold at around 27.5 rupees, so that it is cheaper and affordable for the common man and the poor people, and it will increase availability of the wheat flour. Coming to the last article, China has urged Myanmar to cooperate to stabilize the border. As we have been discussing over the last few days, China-Myanmar border has been destabilized by some of the ethnic rebel groups, the insurgent groups operating in Myanmar. In the Shan state, in the northern region of the Shan state, which borders the Yunnan province of China, a major security challenge has come up for Myanmar. As you know, Myanmar is ruled with a military junta. In 2021, the military leadership toppled the elected government and captured power in the country. Since then, it has been facing resistance from pro-democracy protesters along with a rebellion from various insurgent groups. So recently, Myanmar has lost control. Myanmar's army has lost control of certain key areas along the China-Myanmar border. Rebel groups have captured some important territories right along the China-Myanmar border. So this raises concerns for China. Obviously, China is a supporter of Myanmar's military junta. China is very, very close to the military junta. But China's concern is about its investments in Myanmar, its connectivity projects. As part of its Belt and Road Initiative, China has built the China-Myanmar Economic Corridor, which is a vital link that connects China's Yunnan province with the Rakhine state of Myanmar. Is that clear? China's Yunnan province is directly connected with the Rakhine state of Myanmar. And this is absolutely critical for China because it gives China direct access to Bay of Bengal and the Indian Ocean region. It will reduce China's dependency on Malacca Strait. Is that clear? Malacca Strait is a choke point, which is a weakness for China. China fears Malacca Strait being blocked either by US or India in case of tensions. So it remains a choke point for China. Now, China has reduced its dependency on Malacca Strait through the China-Myanmar Economic Corridor. It consists of road, railway projects, then it also consists of pipelines, gas and oil pipelines, along with power plants and industrial corridors. It's an integral part of the Belt and Road Initiative. So China's Yunnan region is linked with the Rakhine region, and of course these projects pass through the Shan state as well. So any instability in the border areas bordering Yunnan threatens the very viability of these projects. China is very concerned about its gas pipeline project that links the Ramri Island, present in Bay of Bengal in the Rakhine region of Myanmar, which is closer to India, connects Ramri Island with Yunnan province, with the Chinese border city of Ruili. Please note down this location, very important. So from Bay of Bengal, China is extracting oil and gas, transporting it through the pipeline directly into the Yunnan province of China. So such projects are being threatened due to constant instability, especially the recent instability that has occurred in the border areas. All right. So that is the development being reported here in the article. So this completes my detailed discussion of today's The Hindu newspaper. Please take up these two questions for your mains answer writing practice. Write the answers, post them in the answer writing portal, for which the link is provided in the description box below. Also head to our Telegram channel because we'll have a quiz on these articles right now, and it'll help you revise these topics again. The link for the Telegram channel also is provided in the description box. So I hope you guys have liked the session. Do let me know how it went in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. So that is it for today. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.